guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Neighbor Chopped Down 60 Trees on My Property at Night. I sued him for $376,000. Last year my wife and I purchased our first home, and boy was it a fixer-upper. As a matter of fact, most of the large, but old homes in the area were going up for sale. Some were already renovated, some were still in dire need of TLC, but no one could deny that these big and beautiful houses in the rustic backwoods of Missouri were a steal of a deal. There were probably about 13 houses along a deep stretch of land that backed up onto a lake. The area is also heavily wooded, some of it just being overgrown weeds and saplings, and other parts are full of large and mature trees of different varieties. Our home had a decent view of the lake, even with all our trees. My wife and I had wondered about removing some of them but decided against it when we realized how much we enjoyed their beauty and shade. Maybe raking would be a bit of a pain, but it is worth the view in the fall when the leaves change their fabulous colors of orange and red. The neighbors to the north and south of us had a less appealing view of the water, but they could see it, nonetheless. I suppose if you were to cut down some of the trees on our property that were near the back they could see the lake better, but I'm sorry. Marring the wonderful oak and maple trees in my yard isn't worth their view. Anyway, my neighbor named Lee purchased his house only a few months after we had moved in. And since he's been next door to us, all he's ever talked about was how he could have a better view of the lake if we just chopped down a few of them trees. It was honestly so annoying. Almost every time that we would hold a conversation with him for more than a few minutes he would bring it up. I'll admit that he wasn't a terrible guy, and he had his funny sense of humor and was always nice. His wife would even give us any extra baked goods she made because she didn't want Lee to eat anymore. I guess he was at risk for diabetes or something. One day he decided that he would propose to me to help him pay for the tree removal and that putting in a walking trail to get to the water where he docks his boat during the summer would benefit all of us. While I'll admit that this is actually a smart play by him, I am still not willing to do so. My wife was willing to bite, but I continued to stay firm on keeping my beautiful trees. I do want to say that we did clear a lot of the overgrown foliage and kept a few of the smaller and less mature trees. There was one tree that I did opt to take down, and that was because it was nearly dead, and I was worried about how it was leaning over the roof. The backyard was starting to look really nice. I had even put a fire pit in the back with some really interesting river rock and custom-made benches. They were built out of the oak tree that we had to chop down. The carpenter said that the wood was in good enough shape to still use. Lee would come and go and talk to us occasionally as we sat out by the fire or on our back deck eating breakfast. There was no indication to me that he would actually do what he did. I guess I should have smelled something fishy, besides him, when he was jokingly mentioning cutting the trees down again one night after a few beers. He had been out fishing all day and was pissed he didn't have some walking trail to use to haul his wagon with his cooler and bucket of base. A few days later, on a beautiful late summer morning, the humidity was finally lowering, and the sun felt less suffocating. I got up to make my morning coffee, and the vastly different view from my sliding glass door caught my eye immediately. The tree line in the back of the yard was gone. All of the trees, except one. One of the larger and older trees near the middle that overlooked the fire pit area was still standing. But only dozens of stumps remained of my once beautiful tree line. The image in my head of the gorgeous orange and red fall leaves blanketing the ground was ruined. That bastard. How dare Lee overstep this way and devastate my property like this? My wife woke up from all my exclaiming and cussing and knew right away what had happened. She stood in shock at the back door and cried as I spewed curse words and threats to our neighbors' well-being and safety behind her. I don't hesitate to get on forums about tree laws, where I am directed to call an arborist to assess the actual damage to the property. My husband handled calling the police to make a report of the property damage itself for our future lawyer. I restrained myself from marching right over to that man's house and giving him a piece of my mind and fist. The arborist was quick to come over and give me a breakdown of my losses. The guy made a comment when handing me the paperwork. He said, "I know you lost a lot of trees, but you just inherited a ton of money," and casually walked away. I watched him walk away, then looked down at the paper. According to what he found, my neighbor cut down 61 trees. Which comes out to be a little under $400,000 in damages, not counting any extra costs that the judge may award for damage to property, trespassing and court fees. This seemed crazy, but hey, can't complain about maybe winning almost $500,000 off some trees. A few days pass and the lawyer we've hired sends Lee his paperwork stating that we are suing him for property damage. However, we had to prove that it was him that actually did it. And that was something I didn't have yet. I called around to try and find what company came and did this overnight like some kind of tree-cutting ninjas. No luck. The week ended and I was starting to worry about how we were supposed to prove that Lee indeed was the culprit. My wife was thinking that we may have to drop the case if we couldn't find some kind of evidence to point in his direction. We had tons of footprints in the yard after it first happened but couldn't say that one set specifically went to his house. That was probably the best bet at the time. Then it's like God really was listening. A knock came at my door that Sunday morning. My other neighbor from the north side of us was standing with a French press full of coffee and a USB drive. I have something that you may want to see. Honestly, it was like something out of a movie. First of all, I have only met this woman once. She is a few years older than my wife and has one son that goes to the local college. As far as I know, she is some kind of wildlife enthusiast and always seems to be outside in her garden working. Apparently, she is the only person that has maintained living here over the last 30 years. I invited her inside out of sheer curiosity, and I did not have any idea what information she had that I could need. Come to find out, Darla was her name, and she had 2 wildlife cameras posted in her backyard. One that looks towards her garden and bird feeders and another that looks across the yard towards the lake. Only this view catches a really nice shot of a large portion of my yard. That's right. Darla had caught on camera that asshole having my trees cut down. Thankfully, her camera had excellent night vision to try and see animals in the dark, making it really easy to catch everything from that night. Darla was kind enough to let me keep the USB drive and I quickly handed it off to my lawyer. This information and video evidence was all I needed in court. Lee had clearly made himself scarce since his midnight tree massacre, plus he's already been served papers from our lawyer. It was only a month later that we had our day in court. It didn't take very long for the judge to reach a conclusion. The evidence of him leading a crew of guys into my yard and cutting over 60 trees down was undeniable. The judge lectured the old man for a minute, telling him that he was honestly being lenient and that we could be asking for more compensation. The total came out to over $376,000. We practically skipped out of there. Now, don't get me wrong. I did actually feel bad for taking Lee for that much money, plus I did like his wife and her baked goods a lot. But it turns out, Lee had a shit ton of money stashed away and was pretty quick to pay us back. Plus, he was generous to replace several of them, without us asking, with some older trees of my choice. Lee actually still lives next door to us, and his wife still brings me baked goods from time to time, but we're not exactly chummy. The next story is titled, "Locking the Pool Because People Jump the Fence Only Hurts Those That Pay for the Pool Key." Seriously. It's been happening for years. This lady Judy thinks she is judge and jury of the pool. Not only does she lock the pool for a day as punishment if someone from the renter's side jumps the fence after hours, but she also sits and watches POC. She goes so far as to follow them to their townhouse to make sure they actually have a key and aren't just faking. Very strange, she doesn't watch my white husband, but she watches me and our neighbors. This is happening almost weekly where she put a padlock and writes passive-aggressive notes as to why we can't swim in the pool we pay for. The only people she's punishing are the people that actually pay for the pool keys. She is homeowner association vice president and has nothing better to do than marshal the pool. I called the management company, and they were baffled why she took this upon herself. They are sending out an email soon with updated pool hours and rules, but I'm not sure if this will deter Judy. I just don't understand. Is this normal? It seems over the top to me, but this is our first, bought, paid, have the deed, no mortgage home. We always pay our fees on time. We've lived here nearly a decade and I regret voting for this. See you next Tuesday. I need some advice about this lady besides my note next to her note and calling the actual homeowner association company and complaining, because done and done. Update. Sent photos of Judy's little notes to the management. They are sending out new pool rules with extended hours. The homeowner association president is on vacation but returns next week, so we just have to wait and see. Pool is open today and I took several neighbors that didn't pay for a key. We had a great time with no Judy. I talked to some of the teens, 16 and up can swim without supervision, that came to the pool and suggested they record Judy if she follows them, and they can come to my house if they don't feel safe. I will be taking my phone to the pool from now on. I didn't before because my house is right next to it. I love all the lock cutting suggestions. To be clear, I will only be cutting the lock in my daydreams. I dream of cutting it off and throwing it through Judy's window, but I won't because I'm an adult with responsibilities. Thank you everyone. I appreciate all the comments, suggestions, and laughs. The next story is titled, "My homeowner association emailed me a warning to trim my weeds literally as the landscapers were working on my front yard. The community manager emailed me a notice saying to remove the weeds from my front lawn, or that we would have to pay a fine in 14 days. She took the photo of the weeds at 10:29 a.m. The landscapers had arrived at 9:42 a.m. and were parked behind my car. She took or cropped the photo in a way so that you couldn't see the landscaper truck behind my car. I sent her photos after the property had been cleaned up, as well as the invoice for today's work. I also acknowledged that she took the photo when the landscapers were there. Haven't heard back yet. It's not the first time she does something like this. In October, we got a notice to remove the weeds. We told her we would not be able to take care of them till the following weekend. She said okay. That following weekend, she sends another notice for the same thing. We complain and tell her what we had agreed upon, and she basically says, "You're lucky we didn't fine you." I normally give people the benefit of a doubt, but what happened today gives me the impression that she's harassing/targeting us. Update. She said that if she would have seen the landscaper, she wouldn't have sent the notice, and she is closing the violation. It makes me wonder if the time stamps on their notices are incorrect, fake. The last story is titled, "Trampoline Looks Too Trashy." We rent, not own, in a homeowner association townhouse community. We have two incredibly active kids, ages 3 and 6, and it has been pretty hard to parent and work from home over the last year. In the first weeks of the pandemic, we put up a medium-sized trampoline on our fairly small back patio. It takes about 40% of the patio. Most people use the patio for an outdoor dining set, so it's a bit out of the normal tone of the neighborhood, but not against any existing bylaws or anything. We checked. We have a lock on the trampoline and updated our insurance policy when we set it up. Our landlord obviously okayed the trampoline as well. The patios are all private and the grassy space behind them is shared, but etiquette says that everyone keeps to the grassy space directly behind their own patio. This was actually largely an attempt to keep our kids from just using the grassy space as theirs, and getting uncomfortably close to other people's houses just when everyone was spending more time at home, as we couldn't just sit outside all afternoon policing invisible lines but also didn't want our neighbors to have kids running right next to their patios. All the back patios are separated by tall fences but open to the grass behind them. The safety net of the trampoline went about a foot over the fence height, but our kids, being quite young, never jumped nearly that high. The trampoline saved our whole year, and our kids love it. We never let them go on it before 9 a.m. on weekdays, 10 a.m. on weekends, and they start their bedtime routine at 7, so they were never on it late at night. If they ever got noisy or rowdy, I would quiet them down or have them come inside, because I am conscious of how close together the houses are. My next door neighbor really hates kids in general and has commented to me several times about how much my kids are outdoors. Which there we ride our bikes most days to the neighborhood playground, and when they don't have school I also take them out for usually about 4 to 6 hours, either to a long hike or for some extended time at a local playground. We rotate playgrounds. They draw with chalk on our concrete front steps, and I take them to play in the field across the street when we just want to run around in some grass. In the hottest part of the day, they often will play beneath the trampoline, crawling around with trucks or playing with bins of water. They are incredibly active. When I am doing things like making dinner, that's when they would tend to jump on the trampoline. Well, the neighbor complained to the homeowner association a bunch of times, and also exaggerated some other complaints, saying that my kids climb the rock wall behind the house. They play at the base of it and sometimes position toys up on the rocks, but it's not like they're scaling it or climbing up it or anything. He tried to say the trampoline is not allowed, but when we went line by line through the rules and insurance stuff, he switched tunes and said the trampoline is an eyesore. He also complained that we grow vegetables and planters on our patio. He grows flowers and thinks that tomatoes and spinach etc. are unattractive. He complained about the kids drawing with chalk. Dude, if there were some freak situations where no rain came to wash it away, it vanishes with 5 seconds of the hose. So, in any event, after nearly a year of a ton of complaints from this guy about the general eyesore of our patio, the homeowner association made us take the trampoline down. Which, fine. Whatever. I get it. We made our case and lost, whatever. But I'm pretty ducking mad. They were on the trampoline, like, maximum 60 minutes a day, never all at once, usually in 2 30-minute intervals. The guy works outside the home and is almost never home when they're on it, except on Saturday and Sunday evenings, and again, that's like 30 to 45 minutes max that they will be on it then. I really think he just doesn't like how it looks. He thinks it looks trashy, basically, which is clear from his other complaints about our lives, the chalk, the vegetable planters, etc. And I'm pretty upset that we have to take it down just because he just doesn't like the look of it. Like, I am pretty sure it's not about noise or anything like that, because we are very conscientious about the noise aspect of our kids playing so close to other people's patios in general. So, I am going to have my kids play on the grassy area behind the patio instead, and if the neighbor complains I'll be like, sorry dude. For some reason the homeowner association made us get rid of the thing that made the patio into a play area. I know you can see them a lot more now and they can just sit there staring at you while you water your flowers, but they aren't technically banned from playing on the backyard grass. We've just been keeping them off it out of an abundance of politeness. But unfortunately, somebody complained a whole lot about not liking how the trampoline looks, so the grass is where they play now, because at least the homeowner association can't stop them from doing that. I'll set up obstacle courses out there on that grass right behind my patio, every ducking day, and he'll just have to deal with it, because we are allowed to put small toys on the grass as long as they are taken back each evening. I hope he enjoys seeing a lot more of my kids, and hearing them too, because I'm not going to remind them to keep their voices down anymore either. He has a dog that barks constantly, all day long when he's away at work, and it's so petty, but I can't help wanting to just start keeping a log of when and how long the dog barks and complaining to the homeowner association with a weekly list of times. I want him to have to lose something he loves, but I also don't want the dog to suffer just because its owner sucks. So, I won't complain about the dog. But damn, do I want to? Maybe I just want him to worry about it. The guy also uses his garage as a weekend workshop for furniture renovation, and holy crap, am I going to file a formal complaint every single time from now on. The sawdust, the noise of the power tools. Like, I work in carpentry. I'm not upset about a few hours of running the sander in the middle of the day, but oh, I can be, the runoff of sanded off paint and whatever else down the driveway from when he rinses the floor off with the hose at the end of the day. I'll ask to see VOC and spec sheets for every single ducking stain and paint and adhesive he uses. It just sucks. When he first moved in, he was out trying to set up an illegal flower garden next to the rock wall, for himself, and he got into a ton of poison ivy. I ran over to tell him about it and gave him our poison ivy soap and told him to keep it as long as he needed and return it whenever he got around to it. I shoveled his driveway many times this past winter because it's a shared driveway and he wasn't home from work yet, and I was already doing our side and just figured I'd do the whole thing. I caught his dog once when it escaped. I really don't think my husband and I are terrible neighbors. We just have a patio he finds ugly. I mean, it is kind of ugly, but it's where we are in our lives and it's in the back of the houses, and there's a 6 feet tall fence. Just don't look if you don't want to see it. I really don't want to be a shitty person, but I hate this guy so much that it's so tempting to become one. And I hate the homeowner association for backing him up. Thanks for listening.